it's me, Margaret. So I'm going to be reading a book to you that's called Disney Nursery Rhymes and Fairy Tales. We're going to read the fairy tales part, so let's get started. So let's just bring up to the fairy tale page. So we're going to read the fairy tale called Rip Van Goofy. Once upon a time, in a sleepy little village, there lived a friendly young fellow named Rip Van Goofy. Rip was very popular, and everyone thought there was no one more easygoing or agreeable. Most times, you could find him sitting outside the village and chatting with his friends. Mickey Van Bumble, the schoolmaster, and Horace Fender, the owner of the inn. They gossiped about all the latest news in the video, commented on the stories in the newspaper, and generally talked the day away. Aside from chatting, Rip also enjoyed napping and fishing, and napping while fishing. In fact, Rip enjoyed just about any activity that didn't involve work. One sunny day, Rip Van Goofy, with his new fishing pole in hand, sauntered up to the inn to see whether Mickey Van Bumble or Horace Feder wanted to come along with him to a special fishing spot 5 miles outside the village. "No, I'd best stay here and keep an eye on the inn," said Horace Fender. And I don't have a fishing pole," said Mickey Van Bumble. "But you have a good time, Rip." And so I was that Rip Van Goofy set out alone on that sunny day. He walked 5 miles out of the village along a dusty country road until he reached a large crooked tree. There he left the road, had tramped through the woods until he came to a lush green spot on the banks of a trickling stream. "Ah, yes," said Rip as he sat down on the soft grass, dropped his fishing line into the water, and leaned back against a moss-covered rock. "This is the life." He kept on an eye on his line, watching for any little nibble. While he closed the other, he spent a better part of the morning and afternoon half asleep, half awake, until late in the day, when the sun began to sink toward the horizon. As daylight began to fade, Rip Van Goofy's other eyelid closed and he fell into a deep, deep sleep. When Rip woke up, the bright morning sunshine was beating down on his face. He sat up and rubbed his eyes. Last he knew, it had been early evening. Now it was morning. Well, golly, he thought. Could I really have slept here all night long? Rip reached for his fishing pole and noticed something spectacular about it. The metal steel, which had been quite shiny, and the new when he fell asleep, was now completely rusted, and the wooden rod looked much more weather-beaten than he remembered. "Now that's strange," said Rip, reaching up to rub his chin in wonder. Even stranger was the feeling of the long gray beard. He felt on his chin. Rip wondered if he was still asleep and dreaming. How could a fellow grow a foot-long beard overnight? Confused, Rip Van Goofy rose to his feet, picked up his rusty fishing rod and began his walk back to the village, a walk which took him much longer than he expected, since he found he could move only very, very slow. His entire body felt extraordinarily stiff and sore. Eventually, Rip found himself walking through the center of the village. But was this his village? Rip wondered. Instead of the sleepy little village, he remembered he found a bustling town. Stranger still, Rip Van Goofy thought he knew everyone in the village, but today he didn't recognize a single soul, and no one seemed to know him either. Everyone stopped and stared at Rip as he walked by. What in the world is going on, Rip thought. I need to find Mickey Van Bubble and Horace Vedder. So Rip Van Goofy walked at the village inn. But when he got to the spot where it should have been, he found that the inn was gone. In its place stood a restaurant called Vendor's Victuals, and out in the front sat an old fellow in a rocking chair. Do you know a Horace Vedder? Rip asked the old fellow. The old fellow peered out over his glasses at Rip. Horace Vedder used to own this place. The fellow replied, but he sold it to me before he moved away. That was 30 years ago. Rip's head was spinning. Nothing made sense. How could Horace Vedder have left town 30 years ago, when Rip had seen him just the day before? Rip was at his wits' end. Well, golly, does anything here know Rip Van Goofy? He cried out in frustration. Rip Van Goofy? Asked the old fellow, rising down to his feet. Is this really you? Rip heard something familiar in the old man's voice. Then suddenly he realized it was Mickey Van Bumble. Rip said, puzzled as to his friend's changed appearance, but you look so old. Mickey Van Bumble chuckled. And so do you, my friend, he replied. Just then, Rip turned and caught a glimpse of his reflection in the restaurant window, and he gasped. Who was the old man staring back at him? The last time I saw you was the day you went fishing 40 years ago, Mickey Van Bumble recalled. When you didn't come back, we went looking for you, but we didn't know where your special fishing spot was. Where have you been all this time? Suddenly, as Rip thought about the day's events, all the pieces of the puzzle came together. The rusted fishing reel, the long beard, the stiff joints, the changed village. He had been asleep for 40 years. Then, taking a seat next to his friend, Rip Van Goofy told Mickey Van Bumble the remarkable story. Before long, Rip's story had become a legend for miles around, and since Rip Van Goofy was just as easygoing, as agreeable as he was the day he left, he soon became popular with everyone in the town all over again. He and Mickey Van Bumble loved to pass the time sitting in front of the restaurant, chatting about the old days and just talking the day away. Rip also still enjoyed fishing and napping while fishing, But now, before he dozed off, he always made sure there was someone around to wake up just in case. So that's the end of Ricky Van Bumble. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up. Good night, everyone. Bye. Catherine. Bye.